The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast.
Good morning, Rebecca. It's nice to see the sun out.
It is, isn't it? How are you this morning?
I'm very well for a Monday morning.
Good.
And yourself?
So I'm good, thank you. Yeah, very well indeed for Monday morning. I'd like to introduce our listeners to you, Andrew. This is Andrew Johnson. He's a wonderful individual who looks after people's well-being through the medium of relaxation, meditation, mindfulness, and hypnosis. He has a number of businesses that we're going to learn more about today. And he supports people in business to relax and, in fact, achieve more by relaxing and just settling their minds into a more focused way of being. So welcome, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
So let's start with the first question. Way back, what was the spark that ignited your original business idea? And we might need some context about what that was way back when.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was introduced to meditation very briefly when I was at school in the mid to late 70s.
Oh.
And I get a little taster session doing some martial arts, and at the end of the class, the teacher did some meditation, and as I was sitting there with a group of my school friends who were all sitting giggling and fidgeting, I was thinking, there's something to this.
Right.
And I sort of kept up a very loose, unformatted practice for a number of years, and I was always fascinated with the power of the mind, but never thought I could make a career out of it. And fast forward 20 years, and I was working in the family business, and I met someone who had just trained as a hypnotherapist. Was absolutely fascinated with her story, went along for a session or two, was blown away by the results, and decided to completely do what we now know as a pivot in business.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And sort of, I don't mean gave up everything, but the company car went back, and the pension went back, and everything went back. And I ended up training for a year and a half to become a clinical hypnotherapist. Wow. And I'm now in my 25th year of business doing that, but it has broadened out remarkably from that initial sort of one-to-one therapy base. It's broadened out from there.
So a couple of things there. First of all, what an enlightened martial arts teacher back in the 70s to introduce meditation. It was very new to the Western world in the 70s, wasn't it?
Certainly in the south side of Glasgow, yes.
Yeah.
It definitely was. Yeah. Maybe in California, not so much, but in Glasgow, yes.
Yeah.
And there was a huge interest, of course, not only because of the Beatles and their interest in Eastern practices and their visits to the ashram in India, but also because in martial arts because of Bruce Lee and Kung Fu. So there was a massive interest in what was happening coming over from the East. But there was reading back now, there was a huge interest in meditation on the west coast of America. And a lot of people starting to practice there in the sort of mid to late 60s.
Yeah, there was definitely. And how did that sort of one-to-one practice then develop? What happened next?
Well, I guess so as a hypnotherapist, you see one-to-one sessions and you deal primarily at the start of your career. And I think it's probably still the same now with smokers for two reasons. Number one, hypnotherapy is incredibly good at helping people stop smoking because you're breaking a habit. The nicotine addiction is secondary. It's the habit that's difficult to break. But also, smokers are your adverts because they're the ones that talk about it.
Yeah.
So you see one smoker, and you'll tend to, over the next couple of months, see 3 or 4 of that smoker's friends or family. But I had got really, really good advice from one of my lecturers when I was doing the diploma course in clinical hypnosis. I had asked what they had done to really boost their practice. And they told me that I should go and volunteer at a charity that needed hypnotherapy and confidence building. So as luck would have it, I saw a flyer the next day for a cancer support centre in Ayrshire. And I went along, and again, synchronistically, they were looking for someone. And I formed a deep relationship with this cancer support centre and went in there and did a morning a week for I think about 2 years.
Right.
And that taught me more about therapy and working with people than anything ever could have. That was like a crash course in going deep. But what changed for me doing that was I started doing group work. I was working with a group of people and teaching them relaxation and coping skills and resilience. And from that, I developed what then became what I called a stress toolbox, which I started working in the corporate world with. And of course, those were the days that you couldn't mention meditation or mindfulness, or indeed hypnotherapy. So it was all about stress. It was all about coping skills and resilience.
Wow. Yeah, it literally has only been probably the last 2 maybe that in the corporate world you've been able to mention mindfulness. Yep, that's been okay. And now you're able to mention meditation.
Very much so.
I'm not sure you're yet able to mention hypnosis.
Well, hypnotherapy perhaps, because hypnosis has this sort of still has the tarnish of the stage show, and
it does.
And that's a damn shame because hypnotherapy is very gentle and is very useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is definitely. So there was no sort of spark of inspiration about your business. It sounds like it evolved.
Yes, I knew from the first minute of the first day of the training course, which was I think it was started off at Glasgow Caledonian University, and I knew from the first minute that this was what I wanted to do. And within halfway through the diploma course, I was already seeing clients and building a website for it, and I just threw myself into it heart and soul. It was never about money. It was never about anything other than just feeling the desire that this is what I wanted to do. And because I was 33 before I found hypnotherapy, and I had just faffed about at other jobs, and I was always envious of people who had a career that they loved. And I always was scared of talking to people who were in a career that was for money and they hated it. And so I just looked for jobs that I sort of enjoyed, that made enough money to survive. But when hypnotherapy came along, I just jumped into it heart and soul.
Yeah. Okay. And where is that journey taking you today? What does your business look like today?
Well, I saw one-to-one clients for about 16, 17 years on the west coast of Scotland. And as anyone in business knows, there's a limit to how many hours you can do and what you can charge per hour.
Yeah.
The corporate side of things was quite lucrative, but I was traveling quite a bit. But I always had a range of recordings. Every hypnotherapist has recordings, or most have recordings that they give to clients. And some forward-thinking hypnotherapists will then put those recordings on a website and sell them to, well, whoever they can. It used to be CDs, and then it went to MP3s. But 10 years ago, I was really fortunate enough to get into the App Store with my current business partner in the apps.
Okay.
He approached me because him and his wife had been using my Deep Sleep CD. He was starting to build apps for the iPhone when it came out, and was looking for content. And he contacted me. I said yes, and we've had a sort of 10-year business relationship where we've been releasing and building apps.
Yeah.
So we are. I was hugely fortunate to get into the App Store very early.
Yeah.
That was a big part of it. It was a bit of a gold rush when the App Store opened, and it's very, very different now. But it's amazing how quickly technology is changing.
Yeah, I know. Well, I certainly am a huge fan of your Holistrio app,
Yes.
and I use it every single day. And it's one of the reasons that it's recommended on the TriCrest website, is because I certainly know that whilst I've been launching and building TriCrest, it's helped me reduce my stress levels, and actually, probably more importantly, help me focus.
I think that's a hugely important part of the kind of work that we do in building businesses. Focus is hugely important.
Yeah, it's so easy to get distracted, isn't it?
Oh, completely.
Yeah. No, I think, and people say, I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time for this. And you and I have spoken before, and even if you do it as you go to sleep, it still has a positive effect.
Yes.
You know, on your state of mind when you wake up, and your focus is improved the next day.
Absolutely.
You know, that might not be the recommended best practice for meditation, but even a little bit helps, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. And you know, it's important for anyone listening to this to realize that there are no concrete rules apart from not trying too hard.
Yeah.
It's important. I feel it's important that when people put too many rules on meditation and mindfulness and relaxation, that if you don't meet those rules or can't access, or you know, the rules don't fit your way of being or your time, people then believe that they can't do it, and that's so wrong. So a lot of people, in my opinion, the imagery for meditation can be off-putting, because you look at meditation sites and you look at these beautiful young people in a full lotus position, sitting on a rock or sitting on the beach, and you think, well, I'm in, you know, Scotland or anywhere else in the world. It's piddling down with rain, and I don't have the flexibility to sit like that. What can meditation? I can't do it. But in actual fact, you can meditate at any point. And as you said, using the skills of meditation to quieten your mind as you get into bed at night will lead to a better sleep. And you know, if meditation or relaxation techniques, if all they do for you is give you a better night's sleep, your life will transform.
Yeah, definitely. I use your airport. Yeah, I did. I closed my eyes, put my headphones in, listened to one of your meditation scripts while I waited for my flight.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and you know, even though you can hear the tannoy dipping in and out, you switch off enough to just quieten your mind.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
I've started this week to get back into my meditation practice, my regulated meditation practice that I haven't done for a couple of months. And I'm doing 40 to 60 minutes silent meditation. And what I have found is that if I sit and I think about business and I think about all the things I've got to do, my monkey chattering mind gets overwhelmed and starts thinking of everything that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And this is the standard process that the mind does. It looks for the negative in many situations. And I'm a positive person, but I recognize that this is the human being, the reptilian mind, looking for everything, that all the danger signs.
Yeah.
And what has surprised me, even after 25 years of doing this, is going into deep silent meditation, how that mind calms down and you get back in touch with your inspiration and your
Yeah.
creativity.
Yeah.
And even though you don't want the mind to be chattering, it's amazing what beautiful little nuggets of inspiration come up.
It's so true.
It is true, and you see, I think one of the big problems with meditation and mindfulness and relaxation is that people look at it and think it's way too simple. How could sitting still with your eyes closed and doing bugger all actually help me? And in fact, it does, but it helps people in different ways.
Yeah, it does.
And again, this is one of the great downfalls of trying to explain it. If you say to people, you will do this and your mind is quiet, and then they have chatter, they'll think they're wrong. But in actual fact, they're not. It's just what's happening.
It's true. It's absolutely true. It smooths out the process of quieting your mind and allows that bubble up.
Yes.
And that's certainly what I found, is that, you know, occasionally my mind might be clear, but it lasts long before another idea pops into my head.
Yes.
But actually, just because it's popped into your head, it doesn't mean you need to entertain it.
Yes. It's not that idea really that's the problem. It's the going off on a tangent with it.
Yeah, it is.
And then 5 hours later you think, oh, wait a minute, I should have been working, but now, you know, I've done something completely different.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Okay, so what drives you to get out of bed in the morning? What's the reason for doing what you do?
Well, that differs from time to time. It's been funny lately because I've been working on a number of projects that have been kind of slow, and I've been relying on other people to help with them. And lately, in the last I would say 2 months, I've started getting back in control of all my recordings. So it's been an exciting process lately because I've been putting my recordings onto the major streaming services.
Good.
So Apple Music and Google Play and Spotify. And that has given me what I like to think is that wonderful impetus in the morning to get up and just put it out there. I have a rule that I say about my business, and I always have, and I still believe it's true after 25 years. If I try to push things or force things, they tend to push back. And when I just do things with joy and put it out there and have no expectations of it, but do the best I can, then it all starts to slowly come back, and it starts to build and it starts to grow.
Right.
And that's great. When you're selling recordings nowadays in the digital world, it used to be very different. You sold a CD and it was, let's just say, £12.99, and that was a very physical thing. You made £12.99. You took the cost of the recording off, or the CD rather, and the postage and blah blah blah. But you made some money. But nowadays, with the recording business on these streaming services, you're getting a fraction of a penny every time someone streams it.
Yeah.
So you can't really put it out there and expect that you can analyze it. You've just got to put it out and understand that if people like it and share it and you promote it in any way you can, then it will come back to you.
People find these recordings, what do they need to search for?
Primarily, they just search for my name initially if they want to see all of them.
Okay.
On Spotify and Apple Music, really delighted that they have created an artist's profile page for me
Okay.
as an artist. I've never thought of myself as an artist, but if people put my name into Apple Music or Spotify, they will see uh, my photograph or my icon, and that will give them a link to all the recordings.
Right. So just
Um,
Andrew Johnson.
yeah, and it's Johnsson because I've got one of those names that people can spell 3 or 4 different ways.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And who inspires you today? Who do you admire?
In sort of mindfulness, although he doesn't use that term at all, it's Eckhart Tolle, who was
Okay.
the author of The Power of Now.
Yeah.
He's perhaps, for me, the most authentic spiritual. I can't think of the words to describe him. He's a messenger. His entire sort of process is just talking people into being in the moment, which is really the only moment that we have to be in control.
Yeah.
Eckhart Tolle is fantastic, and some of his techniques have been transformational for me and in the way that I do recordings and work with folk. I've been a big fan of his for, 10, 12 years now.
Yeah.
And there's just an awful lot of other people who are working in the wellness space and putting great content out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. When you were growing up, who inspired you then? Who did you look up to?
That's a strange one. I was never. For me, it was always about music. So it was always
Ah,
musicians, even though I'm not musical. Music
uh-huh.
is one of the most important things in my life. Never into football, movies a little, but certainly music for me was huge. For as almost as long as I can remember, I've been a fan of Neil Young.
Oh yeah.
Um, and Neil Young for me epitomizes someone who stands by his values and always has. He's unbelievably creative. He's never afraid to change direction. He will always stand up for the quality of the music and the direction he wants to take it in. Sometimes to his career's detriment, but he's someone that is 100% focused on where he wants to go and how he wants to do it, and I love that. There's very few folk that are like that.
Yeah, I think if we think about artists who've stood the test of time, that's the difference, isn't it? Pursued the thing that's important to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Find your bliss, follow your bliss, and just keep going. And don't be afraid to change with technology because, believe you me, it will. If you don't change with the technology, it will swallow you up.
He was good at that, wasn't he?
He was
he's
incredibly good.
Yeah.
And he was. You watch interviews from him from the mid to the late 90s, and he talks about the internet, and you listen to them now, and you think he was almost telepathic at what he thought the internet would be. Incredibly astute.
Yeah, he saw it, didn't he? He saw
He
it
did.
for everything it was before we'd even realise what it was.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, so what worries you, Andrew? We've got entrepreneurs as our audience. Some of them will have sleepless nights. What keeps you awake at night?
What keeps me awake is my chattering mind.
The monkey mind.
The monkey mind, the Buddhists call it. And what keeps me awake is thinking too much about what I need to do the next day and trying to work out what I should be doing. And in actual fact, I should be, and when I do let it go, it becomes so much easier. I keep posting things on social media that say I teach what I most need to learn, and it's absolutely true.
True.
It's absolutely true. One of the things about self-care and resilience and meditation and mindfulness is that when you do it for so long as I have, it just becomes part of you, and you don't really recognize that you're doing it. But we're still humanoids. We're still affected by everything that is external to us, and we can't help that. And all I do is when people say, I can't believe you get stressed or you get anxious or you let your mind run away or you get paranoid and I just thank my lucky stars, because I believe that had I not been doing what I'd been doing for 20 years, it would have been a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah.
Because you can't go back and remeasure it.
No.
So it's all about resilience. It's not necessarily about how you feel and what you're thinking. It's about how quickly you recognize that and you're able to shift your internal patterns and your physical well-being. So it's not about reaction. And stress is, the problem with stress is not what's stressing you generally, because it tends to be external to you. The problem with stress is having the stressor, the someone who cuts you off on the road, and then holding on to that thought that person did something wrong to you. And it continuing to affect you emotionally and physically as the day goes on. So too many people, and as part of the training courses that I do, I'm always careful to say, too many people look to see what's stressing them and they try to change what is stressing them. And the more you try to change what is external to you, the more it bites back. And all you can really do is change how you react to it. And when you change how you react to the traffic jam or the phone call from your accountant or X, Y, and Z or the unexpected bill or whatever it is, as soon as you change your reaction to it, you realize that it is your reaction that's causing the problem, not necessarily the thing that's in front of you.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was it Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean who said the problem is never the problem is how you think about the problem.
I've never seen those films, but I can imagine him saying that, and that's a real universal truth.
It is. And I think the same, people talk about anxiety in today's society and how anxiety is increasing. And I think exactly the same anxiety, which is about stressing over things that haven't happened yet.
Yes.
So stress is things that have happened or are happening, whereas anxiety is about thinking about things that haven't happened.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same, isn't it? It's how you choose, and I think a lot of people don't understand that they do have a choice about how to think about those things. And you've said something really interesting there. Is just let it go. Now that's the bit people get stuck on. What advice would you give to people about letting things go?
Well, my favorite, and once again, simplistic technique, so don't ever be fooled by the simplicity, is bring yourself back to the moment. When we are in a state of anxiety or feeling scattered or lost, we are completely overwhelmed with the thoughts in the conscious mind that is just bringing up basically what is bullshit. It is absolute rubbish that we're telling ourselves.
It's true.
And that can also be categorized as normal because we all do it.
Yeah.
Now, the way I have found, and many people have found, and this is not my technique, it's just one that works for me, is that you have, even if you've just got a little bit of presence, you stop and you feel your feet on the floor and you feel the connection from your feet into the floor, and then you start to focus on your breathing. And you slow your breathing down and you just take it a little deeper and down into the diaphragm, down into the belly. Now, what this does is that it starts to dilute the chattering of the conscious mind. The conscious mind really is, we think it's powerful, but it's really not. It doesn't have a great deal of power. And when you shift some of your awareness down into the belly and down into the feet, what you're doing is that you're diluting the conscious mind and you're taking yourself into the seat of power, which is your belly, your strength. And what happens then is that as you dilute your conscious mind throughout the body with your breathing and into the feet, what you're doing is you're allowing access to the computer, the unconscious mind. And in there are all our resources and our skills and our abilities and our strengths. These are the bits that know what to do.
Yeah.
Or at least can give you an idea that you're a bit more in control. Because that's, after all, that's really all that we're looking for in life. Most of us just want a little clarity and to know that we're in control of our day-to-day.
Yeah.
And so by diluting the conscious mind, we get into a state where we start to feel a bit more in control and the anxiety subsides. Now, this will happen naturally no matter what's happening in life. Even if you don't have these techniques, if you're feeling anxious and scattered because something has happened to you, at some point you will feel more in control. What the stopping and the breathing and the feet on the floor and the diluting of the conscious mind does is it makes that process so much faster.
Yeah.
It can shorten it by 90%. And all of a sudden you think, right, okay, I know what I'm doing now. I need to phone that person. I need to do that. I need to cancel that credit card. I need to get new keys cut or whatever it is you want to do. And you suddenly think, okay, this isn't as bad.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go on, I interrupted.
No, that was it. Yep.
Well, I love the advice. Simply feet on the ground.
Yes.
And breathe. It's so simple.
Yeah.
And I think in our modern world we like complex, but actually
we do.
It's the simple things that work. That really work.
They work hugely, and one of the problems that we have in the modern day world is that we are, and this is something that I keep talking about. I keep talking about the impact that smartphones and tablets are having on us. We have lost the time we used to have for daydreaming, for ruminating, for walking to work or walking somewhere and not being connected to the internet.
Yeah.
And you see it nowadays. You see two people sitting together in a pub or a restaurant, and one will get up to go to the toilet, and immediately the other person pulls out their phone.
Yeah.
There is no time for processing. And what's happening nowadays is that people, bombarded with the entirety of the world's information in their hands 24/7, are going to their bed at night, closing their eyes, and all the thoughts they should have been daydreaming about or ruminating about or processing during the day are coming up. And then we think, shit, why can't I get to sleep? This is ridiculous. I've had a great day.
Yeah.
But all the little things are coming up. Human beings are not meant to be bombarded with information all the time our eyes are open.
You're right. I have never thought of it like that.
Yeah. So a couple of generations ago, people would, they would walk to work or they would work in the fields or they would do whatever they were doing. And I guess people still do that, obviously. People aren't connected all the time. But, we are meant to have downtime. We don't need to be connected.
There are meant to be moments in the day where you're bored.
Yes, boredom is underrated.
Yeah, there are definite. My 10-year-old daughter often says to me, "I'm bored," and I say to her, "Good, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
great."
Yeah, let the mind wander.
Yeah, let it wander off. Definitely.
If you listen to the space, yes, if you listen to the stories of the great creators in history, Beethoven and Einstein and Henry Ford and all the rest of them, there's one common thread, and it's that there are periods of thought and there are periods of writing, but the great creative leaps come as they wake up or in the shower or in the bath or when they're playing music or when they're going for a walk. It is the times that our unconscious mind is allowed to play its own game
Yeah.
the great leaps in creativity come. And that, again, this is, you know, when I'm involved in doing in companies and we're doing some brainstorming work, that's why it's so important to have laughter, and it's why it's so important that when you're doing brainstorming, you end up starting off with ridiculous ideas, because everyone loosens up, everyone has a laugh, and then all of a sudden they've relaxed and some real creativity comes through.
Yeah.
It's hugely important.
It is. It's really important. Very important. So how what frustrates you most about running your business, Andrew?
I think we are today, if you're in a technology business, there are so many avenues you can go down that you can end up chasing your tail. It's like social media.
Mm-hmm.
You can end up spreading yourself too thin.
Yeah.
And there are some amazing products out there. It's never been easier to create something online, but equally the temptation of thinking the next big thing is just around the corner can be overwhelming. And for me personally, that's frustrating. I need to pull back from that and again stick to what's working for me at the moment and keep one eye just slightly on what's happening next.
Yeah. Okay, what is happening next? Where are you taking your business?
Well, streaming is going to be huge, and subscription streaming is for me personally is the way forward. But I'm also developing some online courses to take people a little deeper into meditation and mindfulness.
Great.
And you know, you do these courses that you look at it, and maybe 10 years ago it would have taken a couple of experts to build it, and it would have therefore been able to, you'd have to charge a premium for it. And now there are online platforms where you can create something relatively quickly, concentrate on the quality of the video and audio that you're delivering, and you can make it accessible to just about, financially accessible to just about everyone, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and it's what we've taken that consulting, coaching and training model that costs thousands of pounds to deliver face-to-face to organize, democratized it so that every organization can access exactly what we deliver to high growth businesses on a platform for £17 a month. And it's actually a wonderful thing to be able to give, isn't it?
Incredible. I mean, the value of what you've done with TriCrest is extraordinary, and the content is just magnificent.
Thank you very much.
It's a no-brainer for anyone in business, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I look forward to seeing your courses online with interest, and it would be nice to think we could pop a couple onto TriCrest to introduce people to what you're doing, and get. I feel it's so important that business owners pay attention to their mindset just as much as they pay attention to their profit and loss account.
Yes.
Because increased productivity, engagement, talent attraction and retention all comes from creating a great culture in a business, and that starts with the mindset of the leader of the business.
Absolutely.
And the energy they put out and their emotional state, and that all comes from how they look after themselves physically, mentally and emotionally. I think it's so important. Yeah.
No, completely.
Great. Wonderful. Well, that is absolutely fantastic, and much for sharing your insights. I've learned a bit more about you and about how you work, so that's good. And I hope our listeners, our entrepreneurs, our business owners and leaders, and anybody else who's listening has certainly learned some.
It was an absolute pleasure, Rebecca. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Oh, pleasure. And take care, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Rebecca. Take care. Bye-bye.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass.